Hello, everyone. Boa tarde a todos. My name is Nikolai, and I'm going to be your co-host today with Daila, who has just joined in. Olá, Daila. And hello, Raphaëla. Thank you for joining us. So, Daila and I are from Sciaena, the NGO organizing this series of webinars dedicated to aquaculture. Today, we are lucky to have Dr. Raphaëla le Gouvello with us. Merci, Raphaëla. Dr. Raphaëla is going to be talking about the relationship between aquaculture and marine conservation. And this is a series of webinars that we are dedicating solely to aquaculture, not only because it's becoming a more and more talked issue in Portugal, but obviously throughout Europe and the world. So thank you everyone for joining us. The format of the session is going to be quite straightforward. We're going to have a presentation by Dr. Raphaëla, followed by a Q&A session. So during the talk, you can put any comments or questions that you have in the Q&A box, which is at the bottom of your screen. So please don't put your comments or questions in the chat, but yes, in the Q&A box. So you just need to press it, and then you can write down any questions or comments that you may have. We ask that you do this even during the session, during the presentation, I'm sorry, if you wish to do so, because then it's going to be easier for Daila and I to go over the questions or comments and ask them to Raphaëla. And of course, you'll be able to do them as well during the Q&A session. So that's it from my part. We're going to have 2 other webinars also dedicated to aquaculture. One next week more related with animal welfare in aquaculture. And lastly, around the 9th of July, it's going to be a Portuguese session dedicated to a session about aquaculture in Portugal with different representatives from research, industry, and administration. So thank you everyone for joining us. This session, as you may be seeing, is being recorded, so it's going to be made available online, so then you can share with any contacts that you may have that could not join us today. So I'll give the word to Daila, who's going to introduce Raphaëla, and then we'll go through the presentation. So thank you everyone.
Thank you, Nicola, and good evening everyone, and thank you for attending this webinar today. As Nicola said, Raphaëla will be talking about her work as a member of the Ecosystem-Based Aquaculture group of experts at the IUCN, where the aim is to reconcile aquaculture and marine conservation. And so you know a bit more about her. She's the founder of Respect Ocean and a great windsurfer as well. And I will give the ground to her now, and I hope you all enjoy the presentation.
Okay, thanks a lot, Nicola and Daila. And thanks a lot for everybody to attend this webinar. So I'm very happy today to present some of the work we are making with the IUCN. Here we go. Aquaculture and marine conservation looking for a common challenge. So I'm talking on behalf of the Ebag group with François Simard. Some people perhaps know him. And he's been in the IUCN and now he's retired, but still quite active for the sustainability of aquaculture. So, okay, 2 words first about the IUCN. The IUCN is really an old lady of the world of the conservation, and it's been founded early, mid the 20th century. And what is very unique, and you should keep in mind for the IUCN, it's that you have member states, you have individuals, and you have the big non-profit organization, and sometimes small too, dealing with the environment. So it's a very unique gather of different visions, and also huge networks of experts. So the most well-known expert is related to the red list of endangered species, but also the Commission of on Ecosystem is quite well known and making a lot of different publications. And François Simard started this ecosystem-based aquaculture group, which is a gather of experts dealing with aquaculture and interested in the sustainability of aquaculture. And you are most than welcome to apply for this commission. So 2 words about the work we've been doing so far, and really it was under the initiative of François Simard, so mainly on the Mediterranean zone, and dealing with the aquaculture and environmental questions back in the 2009 to even before, and then site selection, certification, some work we've done with the French aquaculture industry and the ministry with the trout farming in France. And also lately we had this big discussion with related to fish feeds, which is a quite sensitive topic in aquaculture, and how we can actually improve the sustainability of aqua feeds. And now we have been since about 2015 opening this big topic, which is looking at common challenge between aquaculture and marine conservation. The point is here because, you know, if we want to meet the goals for the protection of the ocean, marine ecosystems, and if we want also to meet the food security, sustainability development goals, etc., we have some way to find a way to reconcile marine conservation and aquaculture. Aquaculture has been growing and growing, and lately Doris showed us the last figures for aquaculture. So it is an answer to the world big stakes, and we have to combine aquaculture and conservation. So we started this program in 2015. First of all, with the first phase, which was more aquaculture and marine protected area. And then the second phase, where we are just finishing this phase, it's aquaculture, aquaculture conservation, and coastal community livelihoods as well, the Aquaculture project. So 2 words first about this phase 1 aquaculture and marine protected areas. So it was funded with the Prince Albert II Foundation in Monaco. And we worked closely with the ecosystem management and the World Commission on Protected Area. We had the deliverables, which I will mention to you later. So 1 brochure and 1 scientific paper. And what was the starting point of this? The starting point of this was this first, let's say, thinking group, working group on the protected area, which has started to define and try to categorize marine protected areas under different categories and different levels of protection. So from number 1 to sort of a strict reserve, no-take zone, up to number 6, which is multiple use protected area, where you actually allow different usages and activities within the protected area. In France, for instance, we have the National Marine Park, which is really well fitted in this category 6. And at the beginning of the discussion, there was only 1 line concerning aquaculture. So 1 line to describe the whole activities of aquaculture. We could say probably the same with fisheries as well, but it was a bit striking for the people involved in aquaculture, and François Simard had really this idea of starting to think a little bit more about how can we actually more document this. And we had a team working with us. We had this Ebag group of experts, and Doris Photo that you heard 2 weeks ago is part of it. And again, it's an open group if you feel like to register. So we started with discussions, exchanges. We used different conferences to meet and exchange, and we each of the member of the group was bringing up his own experience of case studies he had been or she had been handling with her bag or his background. And for instance, we had these different cases like Scotland and the French Mayotte, Madeira, Madagascar, and even the Hawaiian traditional fish ponds. And so by looking at those cases, for instance, this is Blue Venture, the nonprofit organization making a great job in Madagascar with locally managed marine area. They're facing a problem of overfishing, overexploitation and degradation of the marine and coastal systems. But still, the population, they need to have income, an alternative to the decrease of fishing pressure. So Blue Venture started the really long-term work by helping the farmers to switch to sea cucumber and seaweed farming and providing them with a new income. Another interesting case was brought by the last Congress in Hawaii in 2016 with the IUCN, and the Hawaiian aquaculture has existed as a long old systems, and now extensive fish ponds built really close to the coastline with and no extra feeds, a sort of a polyculture of different kinds of fish, wide caught, and bringing some food to the coastal communities. And it was completely degraded as a traditional aquaculture. And now there is a real big move to restore this kind of traditional fish farming systems and probably explore more, you know, the benefits that the coastal communities are getting out of them, not including only food security matters, but also cultural and enhancements, educational purposes as well, and so on. In the Canarian Islands, we had Ricardo Harun and Carlos Andrade bringing up the case of the cage culture system, which is a more sort of a traditional farming system we know in Europe, and which is really quite criticized. So in the Canarian Island, you have different sort of protected areas, and they were saying, okay, now we have seen some synergies between, for instance, the people involved in the aquaculture farms and the rangers for the protected area. We have seen some reservoir effect with the fish in the cages. Yes, there are some impacts, but now, you know, the trend is really that we should push out of the protected area all the cage farming system. So is it a solution? This is one question we have kept open. And in Madeira, for instance, we have all this marine spatial planning process, you know, on the way, which is the case of most European countries. And so we are defining places for protection and places for aquaculture. And again, in Madeira, Carlos and Ricardo were telling us that, you know, the trend is to push out the farms out of the marine protected area. But I mean, we have also to consider that you know, the sea is not a compartment system, and everything is sort of on a continuous continuum. So I mean, if you push out of the cages, out of the marine protected area, the cages, it doesn't solve the problem that, you know, if you have a bad practiced farming systems outside the cages, outside the marine protected area, it will still bring problems to the MPA. So perhaps we should go deeper on. Interesting case was brought up also with the Scottish. And in fact, you know, all the marine protected system they have been put in place in Scotland. Sometimes, you know, they had to deal with farms, shellfish farms, and salmon farms. inside. So how do you do that? You know, there are too many. You cannot push them out of the systems, out of the protected area. So you have to find another way. And this is the whole discussion we've had. What is coming first? You know, if you have first the MPA, okay, you put then a kind of aquaculture system. But if you have the aquaculture system first, and then you want a protection status, so how do you do that? So all these questions with discussions we've had, we came up finally with two first deliverables on this program, which was one brochure, which is on the left, and one scientific publication. And what do we say? For instance, we said, okay, we cannot have just one line of aquaculture. This is just an attempt to put a matrix on what kind of categories of protected area you may have, and the different kinds of aquaculture you may have, different systems. And cage farming, intensive aquaculture, what we know in Europe and in Scotland, Norway, etc. Okay, perhaps it shouldn't be under the category 1 to 4, but then you can consider that shellfish, seaweed farming could be introduced in those categories. So, okay. But with discussions, we came up also with the conclusions. You know, the point is where, what kind of aquaculture and how is it practiced, first of all, and what kind of marine protected area you have too. What is the purpose of this marine protected area as well? And then how do you actually, what do you mean? How do you talk to each other? Because most of the time, the marine protected community people and the aquaculture people, they are two different communities talking not the same language. So we have to create a common vision and a better understanding of what is in and out from each of these communities. And then also you have, and this is really true for the aquaculture, for instance, open sea systems and so on. For aquaculture, you have to get a good, healthy environment. Otherwise, you cannot farm your species. So perhaps this is the main point and the basis to embed our whole discussion. So, but we have to go further on. And that's what we decided to do. To further explore needs, opportunities for aquaculture and conservation, and use different tools and concepts with different in-depth case studies. So we used old existing tools such as, for instance, ecosystem approach to aquaculture, but all the others consideration, including integrated coastal management and so on. And this phase 2 project, we focused on 2 different cases with 2 questions. We introduced the idea of, well, we have to also to look at the coastal communities and how aquaculture could provide an attractive and sustainable alternative for coastal communities. And then we introduced the idea of how aquaculture could actually be a nature-based solution. Okay, so we are going a bit farther, and this nature-based solution, I don't want to talk because it's going to be too long, but I mean, nature-based solution is a concept that was that's been emerging since 2016, was pushed by the IUCN and also the Europe, and also under discussion today for defining a global standard of which will help in evaluation in the evaluation of nature-based solutions. So actions, nature-based solutions, they have simultaneous goals, and particularly you have to get a better human well-being and also biodiversity benefits. And that includes also for the marine nature-based solution. So I did some work with within this work program to actually put together, the concepts related to nature-based solution and the concepts existing in aquaculture. And in fact, you can see that the whole thing is under what we call the ecosystem approach to aquaculture. But we can play around with these different other concepts. And one is really important, is to take into account, the ecosystem services, which are a part of the evaluation. And also, how do you meet actually the standard, the sustainable development goals? How do you work out the governance, the stakeholder participation, and so on and so on. Also, how do you work equity as a real point? Ecosystem for services, for instance, it's really something which is getting more and more important now in the academic work, and Bible are actually documented now for different services that they may play, and like oyster reefs and so on. So typically, this is something which needs to be investigated more. And so we had the opportunity with the help of the French Development Agency to run some work more in depth in Zanzibar. So Zanzibar, to remind you, is a sort of autonomous region of Tanzania, and two main islands, but small too. And these zones are protected areas. So quite a lot of protection in the islands of Zanzibar. And a big seaweed farming industry, which is almost 80% of it is located in protected areas in Zanzibar. It is facing, as an industry, problems with the climate change because the water temperature rising. So now there are attempts to actually push a bit more in deeper waters, these by using tubular nets, suspended cultural systems of seaweed. So that's one possibility. And then, as in Madagascar, the government and lots of non-profit organizations are pushing also towards the development of cucumbers and other species that could be helpful for the Zanzibar people. But again, the most prevalent and dominant system in Zanzibar is still seaweed farming, mainly done, 80% of it is done by women to provide an additional income to the family. And then it's sun-dried, very simple. And 90% is exported. So there is a very little attempt now to develop a local production with this woman involved here of soap. And then also with the tourist industry, these soaps could be sold in the hotels, resorts, and so on. So what we did, we actually ran a workshop with all the stakeholders in Zanzibar, working closely with the Ministry of Environment. And we used the theory of change approach to make them work together and work in the idea of optimizing synergies between marine conservation, aquaculture development, and the well-being. So, these three circles, how do we can actually focus on the middle of all those three circles? So we had the people to write down things and paper works and so on and so on. And we could actually edit, after this case, a document which is available here at the link, to present Zanzibar as a case study, to open a collection of new case studies on dealing on how aquaculture and marine conservation can actually be working together. But in those cases, we were able also to find out that there is no ideal situation. really have to try to find, to go in depth. And for instance, in this particular case, seaweed farming, seems quite extensive system with no input, no real pollutions and so on. But still, the impact towards the environment could be negative. For instance, there is a competition between seaweed farmers and then the seagrass beds. And you have to handle this and make sure that you're not causing too much of degradation of the seagrass. And then you have, as we see on the pictures, we have sometimes negative interactions between the tourists, like kite surfers, which are kiting, who are kiting on the seaweed farms. So, okay. But we actually discussed, and we were able to find out that there were some positive interactions between the protection measure and the farmers, seaweed farmers. And though those positive interactions are listed in the document we made, and mainly also with the role that this activity is bringing to the women. So in that particular case, it was quite unique to see, how it is important for the women community to actually give them some independence and perhaps go ahead in the development of their own activities. So in this Zanzibar case, we actually have plenty of small findings, but perhaps the big ones is the thing that there are many potential synergies and opportunities that can find between this system, for instance, and marine conservation, because seaweed farming, as many aquaculture system, is depending on a good quality of the environment. But the marine conservation people have started to understand that this aquaculture is also really important in the whole system of Zanzibar as a key economic activity, and there is a need to keep it. So again, back to these first conclusion we had after the phase 1, we are now in the position to say there is no simple answer. Yes, no simple answer to find synergies between aquaculture and conservation. But perhaps we should not ban any aquaculture. The only aquaculture that should be banned is the badly practiced one, okay? But some system, many different systems are existing in aquaculture, and some of them probably could be compatible with good environmental conditions and local settings. Because the common good is a good, healthy environment. So we have to rely to existing tools, and we have to think of an ecosystem-based aquaculture. I would say even a natural ecosystem-based aquaculture. Linking to other things, emerging concepts, which have been emerging, like the marine spatial planning, of course, but new concepts like what kind of a blue growth do we want for the ocean and coastal economy, circular economy, been working myself on this topic, and nature-based solution, which could be really something new to investigate for the future. So benefits of and limits to these diverse combinations of conservation and aquaculture types. We need to go farther on and explore new cases. And this is one question I'm asking to the audience. Please, if you have a case, a study case that you can bring to us, please come to us. So we are now looking for new case studies of aquaculture and marine conservation, further exploring NBS concept applied to aquaculture, and also really exploring all these tools with social economic issues, including gender issues, value creation, equity, governance, and so on. Thanks a lot for your attention. I hope I wasn't too long.
No, that was perfect. Thank you, Raphaëla. You can now stop sharing your screen if you like.
Yeah.
And we'll go over to the Q&A session. I remind everyone that you can leave your questions or comments in the Q&A box in the bottom of your screen. And we can jump straight into the questions that we have so far. Or maybe, Daila, you can stop the screen sharing of Raphaëla if you can as well. I think you have that option.
Yes, I'm trying to make it.
No problem.
Sorry.
Normally it should be at the bottom. There's like a
yeah, but it's gone. Okay.
Like a bar.
Okay. No. I'm sorry, I'm lost.
No
here.
problem. No problem.
Yeah, go ahead. Arrêtez. Yes. Okay.
Perfect. So, Daila, if you want to start with the first question, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Raphaëla, for your presentation. The first question is from Patrick Murphy. Thank you, Patrick. And it's, what are your views on mussel farming carried out in long line systems, which creates an artificial reef, which in turn provides a nursery for other marine life?
Yeah, I mean, this is a possibility of exploring this kind of study case because there are ecosystem services associated to mussel cultures, but everything has to be assessed. For instance, mussel cultures, as Doris was saying 2 weeks ago, are also excreting. So you need a good proper balance between your mussel farm and the whole environment around, and it has to be on a sort of a social ecosystem approach, making sure that you are not putting too many mussels in the system where you may create more impacts than just benefits. So the whole point is benefits under services under missed services. Go further on to explore this.
If I can ask a follow-up question just before our next audience question, for what you're talking about, it seems that a lot of times it's hard to have a notion of what's that ideal output that you're saying in the level of mussels, for example. When is it too much, and how can we do those ecosystem studies beforehand? Because a lot of times people in the industry obviously have money to invest, or investors ready to put money down. But if we do the studies that we need to do prior to that, it can a lot of times block this industrial interest in some areas. So how do we balance that need for information for certain areas, and also the urgency of some people in the industry who want to invest and want to start creating some aquaculture sites?
Right. Yeah, well, the big question. I think, and this is my profession de foi, as we say in French, I'm really deeply convinced that the point is to start with integrated coastal zone management and having a good gather of stakeholders. So local management, and aquaculture is just one component. The aquaculture people must be participants to this process. So you have to get involved into the discussions for the planning, marine spatial planning, and so on. And that's where actually you define, what is the capacity of the system, where are the limits, the boundaries, and what do you want behind it? Is this going to be aquaculture for just export? This is also a question that needs to be discussed, or is it to actually create more value within the whole community, a local area, and creating some interesting local supply chains. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the environmental carrying capacity has to be, but we have the tools for that. There are models. We also have to think that those processes you start at one point, and this is a co-construction process. And the nature-based solution concept is I think, interesting, because it is really a way to actually go ahead, make some progress with the community of people involved.
Mm-hmm.
But with good ways of decision as well. So I'm sorry, I don't have a straight answer because that's the reality.
I think if you had a straight answer, you would be the first one in the world for this type of question, because obviously it's a very tricky area. But yeah, it makes complete sense. And that aspect of linking local consumption, or at least national consumption, with this production should be key for sure. The next question from the audience is from Dr. Teresa Borges. Thanks for the question. The question is, because you presented a lot of cases like Zanzibar and some other areas, the question is there a case study for developed countries in the ones that you've collected so far?
Yeah, well, I mean, we had Blue Venture, who's writing us now a more detailed document on Madagascar. We made it, just made it on Zanzibar, and we are discussing cases, potential cases in Indonesia, perhaps in Mexico as well. So, okay, we want to go ahead as much as we can, and involving, of course, emerging countries and the north and the south. It has to be worldwide and with all the different approaches also.
The next question is from Patrick again, and I'm sorry if I'm not understanding it completely right, but I'll try. Are there no synergies or none yet identified? Because from all industries, very few remain in their original formats, and innovation and the development of new technologies mean the application of how an aquaculture business first started has seen huge changes.
Can you repeat the question? Let's say I don't see it, so it's more difficult for me.
Yeah, if you click on the Q&A box on the bottom of your screen, you should be able to see the question on top at 402 is from Patrick Murphy. I think in some of your last slides you mentioned.
Because I was an expert as a waste. Yes, I mean that's okay. I think it's more common to what I've been saying.
Yeah.
Saying that my first background is to be a fish vet. So I have been practicing on the field with farms and fish farms particularly. And if you have a disease and the environment is not properly managed, that's when you are facing big problems in the farm. So a good healthy environment is probably the basis for a good managed aquaculture farm. But of course, some fish farms may be pushing the system to its limit, and some new we've had additional information on some impacts we didn't know in the past about aquaculture farms. For instance, cage system farm. So I guess it's really a matter of integrating all these environmental impact assessment really well, and but some aquaculture systems may not be compatible with marine protection areas so I mean, we also have to face this, and perhaps there will be a limit to certain systems where we say, okay, this is really not something which is providing benefits to the biodiversity, for instance, in marine environments, and also it's questionable in terms of well-being or whatsoever, So, okay, it's a tricky discussion, but we I know very well the industry in the aquaculture, so we have sometimes to discuss.
Yeah, of course. The discussion and debate is a part of the evolution of any industry and any conservation problem, let's say. So obviously we need to go through those questions. We have a comment in the chat box from Maria Cunha about the mussel reproduction, about the mussel farming, saying one of the problems with mussel farming is the invasion of hard surfaces around the sites and sometimes far away due to mussel reproduction, which obviously can be a problem in
Yes.
some areas.
That's why I was saying, you know, even in our case of Zanzibar, where, you know, you say, okay, seaweed farm, it's fine, it's clean as a system. No, there are still some impacts to be taken into account. And so mussel farms is a second type of system. And I'm living in a place in France where we grow mussels a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And there are plenty of good benefits for the communities, but there are also some, you know, let's say bad things with quotation, which need to be corrected. So, I mean, what I think should be avoided is, you know, a very sort of strong position a priori saying this is bad, this is good. No, okay. We have to work out together to find out the best way to do it and improve the practices sometimes and define some limits as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Next question is from Aurélie Spadon. I hope I'm saying that right. So the question is about the case in Scotland that you mentioned, and in general, what do you think is the easiest situation and give the best results at the end in terms of both marine conservation and productive and sustainable aquaculture activities? A, when the MPA or okay. When the MPA is put first, or when the aquaculture activities are in place first. So maybe I wasn't clear. I wasn't clear where I understood the question. So is it better when the MPA is created and then some aquaculture is introduced, or the other way around?
We have all these cases. For instance, in Mayotte, it's the MPA which is created at the same time with the fish farm, which is actually promoted because there is a desperate need in Mayotte to get, you know, some activities for the people around. So I think whatever situation you have, maybe the fact that some farms, aquaculture farms, are closed to MPAs and or within MPAs, as long as you have some management in the MPAs and it's not a paper MPA, mm-hmm. then you can start to work out improvement of the system, of the aquaculture system, and also the fisheries and the tourists as well, all the activities. And that's where it becomes then sort of opportunity for everybody. There is a win-win solution. And maybe the MPA, when you have already the farms, the MPA is created after. But I saw cases where, you know, they actually start to talk with the farmers, the shellfish farmers, and see their needs. And the farmers could see also some of the benefits they could get from the MPA creation as well. Perhaps a kind of a better image on the, for instance, for their oysters produced and this sort of thing. So, you know, it's again, it's a dialogue which has to be done. And if you have the MPA and you introduce aquaculture to it, maybe it's an opportunity to create something really new, innovative, like using the concept of IMTA, integrated multitraffic aquaculture system. And, you know, it has difficulties to get implemented, these systems. It's complex. So maybe by having this system applied in a MPA, you may actually find a way to make it run, you know. So in both ways it works, or it doesn't work.
Yeah. The next question is another comment from Patrick, and then he has a question. He's saying that industry controls the size as they are experts, as it was stated, and it's not in the farmers' interest to destroy the ecosystem because this will negatively impact the business and the coastal community that it's supporting. And then he's saying that aquaculture, integrating the different types, could help solve some of the problem individuals may have on the waters around them. Finfish that have excess feed could be solved by integrating a bivalve, and the nutrients created by the bivalves could assist seaweed production. Would this be a case study?
Yeah, well, it's typically exactly what I was saying. You know, I just attended the workshop meeting of the project, European project on integrated multi-traffic aquaculture, and it's called Integrate. You can check. And okay, integrating IMTA is interesting, very promising, but it's difficult to handle. So, and there are lots of things which need to be further investigated. And the farmers, aquaculture farmers, are quite reluctant in doing it too. So maybe we can deal it at the size of an area, a zone, which could be, for instance, a marine protected area. And here, maybe then you can manage to actually manage the system, having some seaweed production, some shellfish production, and perhaps one or two, a few cages as well. Why not? And then it becomes, you know, handled at the with the MPA management team, and perhaps it's one way to go actually, and trying to innovate.
Yeah, we have another comment by Patrick Murphy. Obviously, we thank you for your questions. There was another webinar where Patrick Murphy was active as well, and we appreciate it. We want to create a debate about this. So the next comment question. Sorry. Okay, so.
I wish to focus on the
So yeah, Patrick Murphy says this comment is not correct. We have been asking our Marine Institute to carry out research into what I have contributed here, and he has a question about food production, saying I wish to focus on the positive, not the negative, in food production on land or sea, because none of them are perfect or without some negative consequences. And he says obviously we need to eat, or am I misguided? So rhetorical question.
Yeah.
Let's see if we have anything on the chat. Okay, so we have a question in the chat box from Catherine Mafione. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing correctly. What are the possible ways to integrate other activities and stakeholders than aquaculture farmers when setting an MPA, including agriculture? So including setting an MPA that includes agriculture, I think that's the question.
What are the possible ways to integrate other stakeholders? Well, I mean, it all depends, Catherine. Hello. On the way the MPA is managed, and it's really depending on from one country to another one, and also from the local management means which are given to the MPA. So, for instance, if I'm talking about the case in France. The Parc Marin d'Iroise, which is on the west coast of Brittany, or the Parc Marin de Charente, which is the south west of France with shellfish farmers. I mean, there is a committee, there is a whole governance system for the MPA, including all stakeholders and including the shellfish farmers, but also the tourists and so on. And so I think that's the way where actually the integration is made in this college committee to take decision on how to improve this activity and the practices, and for the whole, let's say, common good for the whole community around the MPA. But this is really different from one MPA to another one. But I mean, I think the system we have in France for the national parks, marine national parks, is quite interesting and unique in the world. I'm not sure we have equivalent systems in other parts of even in Europe. In Europe, for instance, there are MPAs, but the tendency is more in the Mediterranean area to say MPAs should be no take zone or no activity zone, or only one activity such as fisheries or maybe a little bit of tourism, and that's all. And that's where it becomes quite difficult to introduce the aquaculture into this MPA thinking people.
She put on a follow-up question. What about Zanzibar specifically?
Zanzibar, the MPAs are public MPAs. There are only 2 small, and the MPAs are managed under the fisheries department, belonging to the agriculture department. So that means somehow they are open to this kind of activities because they are quite open to the idea that there is a need to keep the communities with local primary activities such as fisheries and aquaculture, and compared to tourist activities which are really well progressing in Zanzibar, but causing some problems into the population, and also pressures towards the environments and so on. So that's how it works, and you have also the Ministry of Environment, which is pushing towards a Zanzibar national strategy for the integrated coastal zone management and so on. So basically, they are quite in line on the idea of combining and accepting aquaculture within the scheme of protection, marine protection area as well.
Thank you. So we have a comment by Patrick saying, well, so Patrick before, he's just said, I didn't read it out loud, but he said he's been involved in fisheries and aquaculture for the past 10 years and has posed quite a few questions. And he finishes by saying, I'm delighted to participate here, for I agree we must protect our environment, and I'm active all my life to this end. So thank you for allowing my questions. No problem, Patrick, that's what we're here for. And thank you for your comments and questions. Maybe to finish up, we have a last question from Teresa Bosch saying, surely trade-offs need to be established to get to the integration aquaculture MPA. Nevertheless, the legislative framework in the EU regarding the sea refers the aim of attaining a good marine environmental status, which depends on knowing the previous conditions on this environment, which is mostly not fully known. So how to match this lack of knowledge with defining the MBS that you were talking about for aquaculture?
Well, okay, I mean, the more we know about the ocean and the marine ecosystem, the more we realize that we need to know more. So I think, but if we give us the means to investigate together, that's how actually we can improve our systems and their management. So I have the case here where I live. There is a committee of initiative of integrated coastal zone management, including the shellfish farmers. And this entity has been able to develop studies using research means to explore some of the questions which were not solved yet. So, and the system then has been improving itself. So I guess we have to start somewhere. But what is really important is to give the system its environment in terms of decision making and monitoring. So it has to be shared, and it's not only the authorities; it has to be all the stakeholders as well, including the non-profit organization and so on. And that's where I think it's the most critical issue. If you can create a trust basis for co-working together, that's where probably you can actually improve very much your system, and including aquaculture as well.
Mm-hmm.
this is perhaps the conclusion for it.
Yeah. Okay, so we don't have any more questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you, you too, and thanks to all the audience. Thank you very, very much for the questions as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Raphaëla. Thank you to all the participants. It's been a pleasure, and we'll send you not only the recording of this webinar, but also the presentation that Dr. Raphaëla was kind enough, well, will be kind enough to share with us, so we can send it that your way. And then we'll also share information about our next webinar, which will be, if I'm not mistaken, next Thursday, about animal welfare in aquaculture. So stay tuned for that. Thank you very much, Dal and Raphaëla. Talk soon.
Goodbye. Obrigada.
Bye, everyone. Obrigado.
Obrigada.
Ciao.